Good morning, everyone. This morning, I will be talking to you about my study entitled Developing English Speaking Skills Through Socratic Questioning in Online Synchronous Learning. I am Dr. Kurt Escandilas, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Lourdes College, Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines. As for the contents of my presentation this morning, I will be presenting to you the introduction of my research study, the statement of the problem, the methods, the results and discussions, and the conclusion and recommendation. As for my introduction, COVID-19 pandemic brought a sudden impact and took a toll on all schools' processes and services across the globe. It brings challenges to the academic community to redesign and realign its systems of operations for instructional delivery. And this is why teachers from primary up until the tertiary level of education and even the graduate school level of education have had to switch and adopt to the different forms of distance education. And among these different educational platforms for distance education is the so-called online learning. Online learning is no longer a new trend in education. In fact, many schools across the countries have had this mode of learning even before the advent of COVID-19. The mushrooming of online education at present is just going to be for the reason on the declaration of COVID-19 as the worldwide crisis or as a worldwide phenomenon. And acknowledging the need of students to continue learning amidst pandemics, online education is indeed seen to be the valuable way for continuing education, which also helps to put a curb on the spread of COVID-19. And weighing the benefits of online education for students to be independent and collaborative, another equally serious outcome that has observed in the synchronous online education is actually the declined opportunity for students to improve their speaking proficiency. It was observed during the synchronous classes of the researcher. The researcher at the same time functioning as an English teacher, at the same time a dean from the College of Arts and Sciences program. I have observed that during the classes, during our online classes, I have observed that my students have had this difficulty in speaking. And when they are actually going to be expressing their thoughts, they are somewhat reluctant to share their opinions during the lectures and other online learning activities. It was also observed that when they are being asked by their teachers of a question, the substance and the substance of their thoughts is not that clear and coherent. And the ideas being expressed are likely unstructured and unparalleled to what is being asked from them. Some of them are too shy to express their thoughts, and they are still very hesitant into expressing it in the English language because they still have to shift from one language to another language so that they are being understood. They are likely going to code switch so that they can express more their thoughts when they are going to share it to their classmates and to their teachers as well. Now, this phenomenon was observed by the previous research studies by Arnold of 2007, Tanayan and James of 2002, and Skinner of 2009. That's the reason why that this study seeks to develop the student speaking skills through Socratic questioning as an approach to teaching and learning in online synchronous class. The objective, therefore, is to introduce Socratic questioning as an approach to teaching and learning, thereby aiming not to strike in the hearts of students, not to strike fear in the hearts of students so that they may be that articulate and or they may be really that articulate intelligibly, their thoughts guided by their beliefs that do not withstand scrutiny. That's the reason why this study was conducted and made. So the statement of the problem of my research study includes the following. What is the participant's level of English speaking skills before and after the intervention, considering the following: pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, fluency, and comprehension? Is there a significant difference of students' performance in Socratic questioning before and after the intervention? As for the methods being used, the study used the pre-experimental one-group pretest and post-test design. Using this design, the students were assessed in their English speaking skills during pre-test and post-test, and the intervention of Socratic questioning was given before the pre-test and after the post-test to compare the difference of scores and also to see improvement of students' English speaking skills after the intervention was being conducted by the researcher. As for the participants of the study, these are the 35 students from purposive communication class of school year 2020 to 2021. These students were selected as the participants of the study as they are the current students being handled by the researcher himself, and also the nature of the participant subjects, such as the purposive communication, entails that they have this prior knowledge to what is communication is all about, and also they have the so-called knowledge in the components of English speaking skills. The instrument being used in this study is the student oral observation matrix taken from the Riverside County Seal of Multiliteracy. This is actually a rubric wherein it's being from the pre-test and the post-test. These are being assessed to the students, and there is the so-called fellow iterator who joined me into assessing the students' English speaking skills. This is to ensure that the objectivity of the assessment is really that followed. And as for the implementation of intervention, the study employed Paul's 2001 principle of Socratic questioning using the following processes: questions for clarification, questions that probe assumptions, questions that probe reasons and evidence, questions about viewpoint and perspectives, questions that probe implications and consequences, and questions about questions. The Socratic questioning as the intervention was allotted for 8 weeks through Google Meet. Such categories for questioning do not necessarily follow a pattern, as students' responses are leading to another category of questions that the researcher is determining. Now, in the implementation of the Socratic questioning, the researcher, being the teacher in the purposive communication class, conducted the following. I have conducted the task for every week during their synchronous class in Google Meet. So I have initially planned the sessions, every synchronous session, and I have crafted questions to be clear and specific to students' learning, maintained silence, and wait for at least 5 to 10 seconds for students to deliver their response to the question so that they could still have to process in mind their thoughts and ideas, and kept the discussion focus, followed up students' verbal responses and let them elaborate their thoughts. So basically ask them questions every time they are going to answer so that I would have to know deeply their ideas. And I also use probing questions for reasons and evidence so that students could have to have facts, use facts and information when they are going to supply me with their answers. At the same time, summarize, the students are being let to summarize what has been discussed during the lesson. So those are the tasks that are happening for the span of 8 weeks. As for the statistical tools, to answer the statement of the problem which I have presented earlier, problem number 1 used the descriptive statistics such as the mean distribution, and the problem number 2 utilized the t-test. As for the results of the study, the table 1 shows the mean distribution of students' level of English speaking skills before and after the intervention. So as gleaned here from this table, student participants' responses in English speaking skills showed the homogeneity of responses. So as indicated from here, the overall mean of 0.49, or from the standard deviation of 0.49 from both the pre-test and the post-test, it shows homogeneity of the responses. And this entails that they have indeed similar responses to the indicators. So during the pretest here, it was observed that the result indicated here from the comprehension got 3.73, here 3.73, fluency is 2.78, and pronunciation is 2.71, and vocabulary is 2.59. 2.59. And all these areas are having this indicators of the qualitative verbal description of being good. So the pronunciation here is good, vocabulary is good, grammar is good, fluency is good, and comprehension at the same time is good. And overall, during the pretest, the English speaking skills of students are good. And a rating of good from these areas means that the participants manage to understand most of what is being said to them at a slower than normal speed, although there are these slight repetitions that are being observed when they are speaking. And there are also frequent errors of grammar and word order, which are occasionally obscuring the substance of what they try to mean from their answers. Speed and fluency are also strongly affected by the language problems, which made them have had word fillers when talking. So it was also observed that when they're going to speak, some of the Cebuano Visayan accent is still traceable when they are going to speak in English. And pronunciation problems necessitate concentration and occasionally lead to misunderstanding. Frequent use of wrong terminologies in English are also observed during the one-on-one virtual informal interview with them during the pre-test and the post-test being conducted. Moreover, an improvement in the student participants' English speaking skills here during the post-test was being observed, that there are these improvements being conducted, such that in the areas of vocabulary, which has the verbal description of good, the grammar from 3.28, it has 3.33. From the fluency, it has 2.78, and it has here 2.88, and also the comprehension, which has 3.73 to 3.93. Although there are these two areas, such as the pronunciation and grammar, which are being rated as good, it still shows an improvement as revealed in their mean rates. Okay, so hence the overall mean also increased from pre-test to post-test. Although it's still good, but then again, the mean rating has increased. Like from the pre-test, it's 3.02, and from the post-test, it's 3.33. As for the table 2, it shows the result of the test of difference in the student's performance of Socratic questioning before and after the intervention. The figures here reveal that the participants being subjected to Socratic questioning strategy, okay, is significant to their speaking skills before and after the intervention. Okay, so this improvement in students' performance confirms the researcher's observation in his virtual class during the synchronous learning with his students, wherein before the intervention, the students are just likely expressing few sentences when they are asked with their ideas. Their pronunciation is likely not that spontaneous, as sound patterns of the Cebuano Visayan language are traceable. And their grammar is likely unstructured, where the use of tenses and subject-verb agreement are sporadically erroneous, which makes the verbal responses unintelligible. And they have had the tendency, of course, to shift from their native language for them to express their ideas and content fully. So these observations were then improved when the researchers utilized the Socratic questioning as a strategy and approach when discussing his lesson. So accordingly, during the Socratic questioning implementation, I as the researcher, at the same time their teacher, let my students be actively engaged in my discussion by means of asking them questions from the beginning, middle, and ending of my lecture. Also, Socratic questioning is employed during students speaking related tasks, such as during the activities wherein they are having reporting, oral recitations, oral revalidations, interview, picture analysis, activity, impromptu speaking, extemporaneous speaking, and all others. So I believe that within this task, students were required to really share to their class their viewpoint of the lesson, and after which I posed questions to let them elaborate their ideas, to keep focus on their elements of thoughts, systems of thoughts, and standards of thoughts. These processes were actually facilitated using the open-ended collaborative discussions and dialogues where students are responding with a shred of textual pieces of evidence and references to support, of course, their thesis or to support their main ideas of the topic. And likewise, they are as well provided with examples and keep discussions to bring them into the thinking of the standard from Paul's model on the principle of Socratic questioning. So, right after I have introduced to them the Socratic questioning, I have already then realized and observed as days pass by that they are now conscious of their pronunciation and they listened well to me and would have to ask back when they seem not to understand the lesson. And they are now very observant in the class, and if ever I would have to ask them questions, they can now express themselves fully. So in a nutshell, this modeling of practice that I have used in the class support Copeland of 2005 and Paul's assertion espousing that with these activities fueled with the approach of Socratic questioning, it brings students an in-depth examination and understanding of their ideas and content and how they rationalize and respond to the questions being asked from them. And so for the conclusion of my study, it was very evident that Socratic questioning indeed helped improve student English speaking skills such as pronunciation, fluency, grammar, vocabulary, and comprehension. This so-called Socratic questioning, when being paired to different series of oral discourses or oral activities in the classes, are indeed very helpful so that the speaking skills of students are being strengthened in terms of these areas. The result of this study confirms Paul's assertion that that by working through an organized procedure of framing questions during discussions and other oral related activities, learners are indeed disciplined and trained to speak and reason. So it is in this regard that the finding of this study recommends the teachers, when having a synchronous meeting in Google Meet or in Zoom or in all other platforms, where their students may have to indeed very utilize the Socratic questioning to develop their students' skills in speaking and to ensure also or to enliven their participation in online learning. So that's it, and these are my references of my study. Thank you so much for listening. Salamat in my very own language. So if you have questions, feel free to email me at kurt.candilas@lccdo.edu.ph or mrkurtz21@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. You do have a great day.